Hello, this is Alex here. I'm talking to you from the Flow Photographic Studio, and you may hear some sort of machinery going on in the background. I thought I'd take a moment to record something, almost as a visual note for myself, as a diary note for myself, um, so that I can look back on this and try and capture something of this moment. Because uh, the reason being is that I've just started printing the exhibition, the retrospective that I'm curating and designing at the Bodleian for later this year of Paddy Summerfield's work. The exhibition is called The Camera Helps, and we've pulled together. And when I say we, I'll talk about who all the people involved in a second, but we've pulled together seven of his main bodies of work, five published, two of them unpublished, and uh, and they constitute the main event, if you like, the main displays. And then alongside that, there will be a sort of exploration or a what you call a display, a manifestation. I hope that's the better word. Of his extraordinary practice, his photographic practice, the sort of physicality of Paddy's work. So, um, so the main bodies of work which we're going to be showing are, of course, his published work, Mother and Father, Ox, the Oxford Pictures, uh, the Holiday Pictures, Empty Days, and Home Movie, and then add to that his beautiful sequence, Tony Lights Up, which is just 10. Actually, it's a couple more pictures, but we'll just be showing 10 of them, and Handheld, which is one of my favorite sequences, bodies of Paddy's work, which many people won't have seen. So all of that is going on now. Now I've been working with this one wonderful team of people at the Bodleian, um, headed by well, of course, there's Richard Ovenden at the very top, and it was Richard Ovenden's decision, and he runs the Bodleian and all the sort of Oxford libraries and university libraries and museums and so on. And he is a big cheese, but and he's also a big supporter of photography. So he's made the Bodleian the most exciting, and active institution uh, in the world of photography at the moment. And I mean that in the sense of the sort of the institutions that collect, the institutions that take in archives, through Richard's extraordinary energy. Huge things are happening at the Bodleian, and I'm very lucky to have been sort of carried along on Paddy's coattails into this role. Uh, uh, you know, Designing and curating this exhibition there. And I'm eternally grateful for Paddy to Paddy, for allowing that to happen. And particularly to Richard, because it's Richard's vision which is making all of this happen. Alongside Richard is Maddie Slavin, who I suppose you'd say her role is to communicate um, uh, the work of the Bodleian through exhibitions and other media as well. And so she's sort of been sort of the one overseeing everything. And there's Sally Ann Gilchrist, who is production, I suppose, for the Bodleian. And I'm saying all of this because it kind of sheds light into what is otherwise quite an opaque institution. I mean, the Bodleian is a sort of extraordinary thing, and we all know about it, but we don't know. It is made of people, and it's people that make things happen, and so that's where. And I think that's just a needs constant reminding that institutions are people, and people who have sort of a passionate and go to extraordinary lengths to support culture in the country, in this country. And then alongside, I say alongside, but that's not a corporate sense. I mean, I just mean next. There's Lydia Healy, who's the curator of photography at at the Bodleian. And I should give sort of credit to Philip Roberts, who was Lydia's predecessor, who was the previous curator of photography at the Bodleian, because it was Philip who was tasked with and it is an enormous task of bringing Paddy's archive uh, into the library, and it was his energy that got the whole thing started in a way. So he Philip really needs to be recognized for that. Anyway, so I'm at the stage where I'm not even halfway through the printing, but I just wanted to talk about a little bit about the process of it, because it's just a fine sequence of things that all had to come together in order to make the prints, and then in order to put the exhibition on. And it's the reason I wanted to record this, as I said earlier, was because it's a novelty for me. I haven't really worked with an institution like the Bodleian before. Um, it and I certainly haven't curated or designed an exhibition of this size before. So I've done, I do the exhibitions here at Flow, and you can see Jem Southern and Barbara Bosworth show right here. but but when you work in a studio, pretty much autonomously, and then you work with a centuries old institution. There are different working practices and different expectations and so on, and for me it's been an extraordinary learning process, but one that has uh, I think I've sort of it to give a sort of psychobabble sort of term to it, I've grown from, because we've had to plan everything to the millimeter. We've had to take. I mean, Paddy's work is dark, or not all of it, but some of it is very dark, and we have to take that into consideration. How do you display work? How do you communicate the sort of inner torment of somebody in a way, in a public space? These are questions which I've had to grapple with, and I'm eternally grateful to the Bodleian for giving me the opportunity to work through those ideas, and to see how you can take something which is without losing its bite, without losing the tone of darkness in some of the work, because Paddy suffered from poor mental health, and that he reflected that in some of his in Home Movie and Empty Days particularly, and 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 so how do you communicate that? And these then you talk about the much more. It's not straightforward, but it's much more sort of documentary style work, like the Oxford Pictures, which again deals with his own psychology of feeling alienated and from the world around him, and was made, and where in which that set of work in which the pictures were made when he was a very young man, feeling that he was completely cut off from the world of Oxford around him, and that he was finding photography, that photography, he was using photography as a way of expressing that alienation that he felt, and as such was the sort of connection he had with the practice, that work is probably, funnily enough, I mean, it's probably his. A lot of people think it's his strongest work. I mean, I, I don't. I see it in mother and father is the mothership, if you like, and that certainly was my for me, but that came later in Paddy's life, and um, he had developed a visual style. He developed an unmistakable visual style. I would say you can always see I can always tell a Paddy picture. So at this point in the process, as a curator, as curator and printer of the work, I've had to sort of engage in certain ways with the work, which I would never have had to had it not been for um, the necessities that are forced on you by working with an institution like the Bodleian. And then I just want to mention Patricia Baker Cassidy, um, Paddy's widow. Now, Patricia and I have been working on this together. So on the one hand, I might have a sort of certain sort of say in the layout of the exhibition and so on, but Patricia, it's Patricia who knows who knows the stories behind all the images, and it's Patricia who knows where, how to, find the negatives for scanning. I mean, so the process has been one of sort of throwing up images, just grabbing them from any old place and chucking them on a virtual wall, having them then putting them up for consideration. So Patricia and I will look at them and think, no, that works better than that, and the usual process of curation and design and so on. But then Patricia knows that actually there are hidden references in many of Paddy's pictures, and we hope to go into that in the catalogue that accompanies the exhibition, which we'll be working on together. And so Patricia's involvement and our friendship has allowed, I think, another dimension to evolve in the exhibition, as it will be seen, and which is a greater depth, because Patricia's knowledge is probably greater even than Paddy's, was when because she was the one who sat by him. Patricia was the one who enabled everything, and she sat by Paddy. I would often, when I'd go around there, I'd come in, and Paddy would be sitting. Paddy would be in the sitting room with books on his lap, and and so on. And Patricia would be at her desk with her scanner, with a computer, and she would be working on images. I mean, that was pretty much how when I think of going to Paddy and Patricia's, almost from the word go in Oxford, that was the scene. And so Patricia would sit there and chat, and I would sit next to Paddy, and we'd look at books. And that was it. So Patricia is the professor of Paddy's work, and she knows exactly how to interrogate the images, if that isn't too pretentious a word, but to understand the images. And so I think it's been a really uh, good combination. I'm halfway through the printing now, and I think that when I've got through the printing and everything is off, and we're starting on the next phase of this, I'll be making some films of Patricia, recording her talking about the work, and we're working on that's something we're working on over the summer, and as I say, the catalogue, which I'm really looking forward to, because that will be a great way of going a bit more broadly and a bit more deeply into the work. Um, then I'm going to come back and talk about sort of other aspects as the show progresses towards installation. um, and just to recap, the show will consist of big displays, frame displays of Paddy's work, 7 of them, plus a big case which will be devoted to much more to the sort of immense amount, the sort of ephemera of, and the and the esoteric about Paddy. I mean, Paddy's working practice was spectacular, in the sense that he did not obey normal rules, and it made for a wonderful, um, a sort of a wonderful uh, kind of organized mess. I mean, Paddy had his way of working. Um, and I'm not going to talk about that now, because I want you to come to the exhibition and see it. But we're going to show how Paddy really, really used photography and really worked photography to make his images. Okay, so I'm not going to go on any longer now, but I will come back at some point and talk a little bit more about maybe the different. The different bodies of work in more detail. But for now, this has just been a little sort of get out of my system where we've got to with Paddy's exhibition. The camera helps, and I thank you for allowing me to unload like this. Okay, thanks, and see you soon. Bye bye.